Okay, so I'm going to teach you guys this next topic of what is merit. This is a type of wholesome Kamma. Now that you guys understand what wholesome Kamma is, that it's the results of your decisions where you're making wise decisions. So the Buddha taught this topic of merit, and I can share this with you because it's something that you're going to need to understand in order to be able to produce wholesome Kamma. There's obviously lots of different wholesome Kamma that you can produce, but this is one particular type of wholesome Kamma that you can produce. So I'm going to share this with you, and I'm going to be using the words of the Buddha a lot to be able to help you see this, okay? So what merit is where you have the readiness and willingness to take action, to be able to give something more than is strictly required in any given situation, such as your time, effort, energy, and resources, without any expectation of anything in return, in order to help other people to get access to the teachings of the Buddha. As you learn and grow and develop on this path, you will see that these teachings absolutely lead to an improved condition of your mind in your life. And as you're seeing that, you might decide that you're interested in seeing other people get access to the teachings. And if you were to make any kind of offerings or gifts to like a temple or a teacher or somebody like that in order to help other people get access to the teachings, that's what we call merit. Because you're going to need to practice generosity in all parts of your life. This is part of the training of the mind in order to train it to let go and eliminate craving, desire, attachment. So you might practice generosity with your parents or your siblings or your neighbors, or maybe even somebody you don't even know, just some random person that you see on the street. You might actually practice generosity with them. That's all helpful. And that's what part of what you're going to need to practice in your day-to-day life, practicing generosity from the middle way, where you're not overextending yourself and exhausting your resources, but you're also not all the way on the other side where you're being selfish. You're going to need to come to the middle with your generosity and practice generosity with the people around you. This is going to train your mind to let go. But when you're practicing generosity towards the sharing of the teachings of the Buddha, we refer to this as merit because it helps people get the thing that they actually need in order to improve their life, which is the wisdom of the teachings of the Buddha. This is something that's been in place ever since the lifetime of the Buddha, where at one time he was a prince destined to become a king. He stepped away from his royal heritage and he went into this life of homelessness, where he slept in people's houses that invited him over. They gave him food, clothing, shelter, and medical care, and then he provided them teachings. He didn't accept gold and silver. He didn't accept land or animals. Sometimes people would offer him slaves, or sometimes even women, because during that period of time, some people looked at women as property and they would offer this to the Buddha, and he wouldn't accept those things. He would only accept the things that it took for him to sustain his life, like food, clothing, shelter, and medical care. So helping the teachings of the Buddha be shared in the world is one of the best gifts that you could ever give to anybody, because now they're receiving the gift of being able to learn and grow and develop to eliminate their discontentedness. So that's why we call this merit, that people have the opportunity to be able to learn the teachings and be able to get access to the teachings. So the Buddha teaches in his teachings that it would be wise to make offerings to what he refers to as the noble community. The noble community is anybody who's in one of the 4 stages of enlightenment or practicing to get into one of the 4 stages of enlightenment. In the Pali language, it's referred to as the Aryan Sangha. And the reason why he encouraged people to make offerings to these types of people is because when you're coming in contact with someone who's in one of the 4 stages of enlightenment or practicing for the realization of one of the 4 stages of enlightenment, you now have the opportunity to cultivate wisdom. So if you can imagine during the lifetime of a Buddha, there were thousands and thousands and thousands of people learning from him. And not everybody was practicing the teachings closely. There was a core group of people around the Buddha that were practicing the teachings very closely, and those people were getting to enlightenment. But there were people on the outer edges that weren't necessarily practicing the teachings very closely. And the Buddha was interested in seeing his teachings continue in the world. And one of the best ways to have the teachings continue is for people to learn them and practice them within their own mind, because as you're practicing these teachings, you'll never actually forget what it took that led to your enlightenment. So there was a core group of people around the Buddha, countless people who were getting to enlightenment, and the Buddha encouraged people to make offerings to these people rather than the people on the outer edges, because he was interested in seeing the teachings become very vibrant and strong in the world, because he knew that these were the teachings that were ultimately going to help people to eliminate discontent feelings, to eliminate that pain and hurtful feelings within your own mind. So he created this system of mutual support where students are supporting teachers and teachers are supporting the students. And this is the way that the teachings continue in the world. So I created this diagram to be able to help you understand what is merit, because in the teachings of the Buddha, there's this practice of generosity. And as I shared, you're going to need to practice generosity with plenty of people in your life, but you need to do that from the middle way. If you overextend yourself with generosity, you're not going to have the basic necessities that you need to sustain your life. But if you didn't ever practice generosity, the mind would be quite selfish. So you need to be willing to give and share with the people around you without any expectation of anything in return, such as your time, effort, energy, and resources. I suggest you do this in a way that's really easy and really straightforward for you, where you don't have to go way out of your way in order to practice generosity. Maybe you do that from time to time, but on a daily basis, you would like to be able to practice generosity. So for example, if you're going into a store and you notice there's someone behind you, if you're opening the door for yourself, it would only take you an extra 5 or 10 seconds to step aside, hold the door for that person, and let them go in first. That would be generosity. But remember, you need to do this without any expectation of anything in return. If you're standing there holding the door, expecting them to say thank you, when they walk through and they don't say thank you, you'll be frustrated and irritated or annoyed because you're not practicing pure generosity at that point. You still have craving, desire, attachment. The mind's craving permanence. I want everybody who walks through this door to say thank you to me. This is the mind longing, yearning, and wanting something. Whereas if you understand the universal truth of impermanence, that things are constantly changing, then you know some people who walk through this door, they're going to say thank you. Other people who walk through this door, they're not going to say thank you. That's the universal truth of impermanence. But if you're craving for everyone to say thank you, now when they don't say thank you, you'll be frustrated, irritated, or annoyed. This is the expectation for permanence, the longing, yearning. So you can do things like that. You can do things like if you're at the market and you're buying yourself some mangoes, you could toss some bananas in there. Maybe you're going to give them away to your neighbors or your classmates. Or if maybe you're going into the store to buy a chocolate bar for yourself. Maybe you buy 2 or 3 extras that you're going to give away to other people. Maybe you don't even know who you're going to give them to, but you're going to see somebody during your day that you could give them to. This is really easy to integrate into your life, where it only takes you a few extra seconds to grab those extra chocolate bars. But you just would like to do this without any expectation of anything in return, not even the expectation for a thank you. If you have an expectation for a thank you, you're sabotaging your mind's ability to be able to be peaceful and joyful, because some people are going to say thank you and some people are not. And you need to get to the point where you don't have that craving and longing, yearning for permanence. So when you're practicing generosity with anybody and everybody, that's generosity. And now when you're practicing your generosity to determine whether this is merit or not, you can ask yourself this question. Was this an offering to a teacher to support the continued sharing of the Buddha's teachings, helping others to attain enlightenment? Well, if the answer is no, you're experiencing these benefits, that you're eliminating craving, desire, attachment from your mind, that holding on, that clinging. That's what is producing the discontent feelings. The mind is becoming quite selfish when it has craving, desire, attachment. It's holding on. It's like, if I do these 3 hours of work, I want this in return. And if I do this for 3 days, I want this in return. You're going to need to do that to a certain degree with your employer, but as you're acquiring resources, you would like to be able to share with other people. So by you sharing with other people, no matter who it is, you're actually producing this benefit, that you're training your mind to let go and not have selfishness and craving and holding on to things so tightly. And you're also producing this wholesome Kamma, that it's helping you to get closer and closer to enlightenment because you're eliminating craving, desire, attachment. But if you're practicing generosity and the answer to this question is yes, that it is an offering to a teacher to help the continued sharing of the teachings of the Buddha, well, now you're still getting that benefit of you're eliminating craving, desire, attachment from your mind, and you're experiencing the results of getting closer and closer to enlightenment as you're eliminating selfishness. But also there's this other benefit that you're helping other people to get access to the teachings. And that's what we call merit, that you're helping other people get access to the teachings. So this room that you're in, this building that you're in, at one time, this land belonged to a Thai person. And somewhere along the lines, this temple is over 500 years old. Somewhere along the lines, somebody said, you know what? I'm getting a lot of benefit out of these teachings of the Buddha. I would like to see other people get access to these teachings. And someone donated their land and said, here, you guys can build a temple over here, right? And that was over 500 years ago. And then those people put together their resources and they started building these buildings, right? This particular building that we're in was built in 1972. It started out as the headquarters for all the monks in all of Chiang Mai. They used to come here and they used to meet and have meetings here in this building. So this was built in 1972, and this building was constructed with the resources of those people who contributed funds to be able to build and construct this building. And those people understood that these teachings had benefit, so they made offerings to be able to build this building so that the teachings could be shared in the world. And then I was invited here to be able to start teaching here several years ago. And eventually they offered me this classroom as a way to learn, or as a way to share the teachings. And when I moved in here, it was really run down. It was really old and dilapidated and deteriorated. And I taught here for about 2.5 years. And as I was teaching here, there was various students that were interested in seeing this place be refreshed and remodeled. So students were contributing to be able to help us to be able to improve the facility. So at one time, I used to have this old beat up projector on an old rickety table in the middle of the room, and people could barely actually even see the projection that I was using with the projector. And someone came along at some point and they said, wow, we would really like to make sure these teachings get more and more access to people. How about if we buy you a projector? And people decided that they were going to put some funds together and they bought a new projector. And this was a gift to the community. And now we have this wonderful projector that's very clear and easy to be seen. So everything you see around you, whether it's the land, whether it's the buildings, whether it's the bookshelves, whether it's the chair I'm sitting in, the microphone I'm talking on, the computer, the cameras, all these different things that you're seeing, this was someone at some point decided that they would like to offer their support to be able to see the teachings actually be shared. And now you're experiencing that. So at one point when we moved in here, not only was this place really run down and we actually fixed it up, but it didn't used to have air conditioning. Right? There's very rarely that you're going to see a temple that has air conditioning. When we were sitting in here, it was 45 degrees outside. We were meditating. You could feel the sweat underneath of your clothes rolling down your body, right? And all we had was these 2 fans blowing around hot air. And then at some point, we decided to put air conditioning into the building, right? And this helped people to be able to now have a wonderful environment. So each thing that you're seeing is somebody having practiced merit. And sometimes people get together. There was a group of people about a year ago that got together and they decided to support the construction and remodeling of this entire room. And what you're experiencing is a completely revamped room because it didn't used to look like this when I first moved in here. It was really old. It was really run down. It wasn't well taken care of. The building was built in 1972, and I suspect nobody had touched this building since then, because when they were doing the remodeling and reconstruction, it was like 1972 tiles and 1972 construction and all this other kind of stuff. So this is what merit is helping other people get access to the teachings. And that's something that you might choose to do at some point in your development on the path to enlightenment, but just understand that there's never an expectation from anybody that you should be doing that. It's up to you to decide if you would ever like to support other people to be able to get access to the teachings. What I'm teaching you is what merit is, and now you get to decide for yourself if there's ever a time where you think that that might be beneficial or helpful for you. Because sometimes when people talk about these kinds of things, they might think that a person is trying to enrich themselves, right? The idea of understanding that the Buddha taught how to give him resources to be able to help sustain his life in order to be able to share his teachings. People might think, oh, maybe the Buddha was trying to enrich himself. Well, that's where you need to understand the life story of the Buddha, that he was a prince destined to become a king. He was already rich. He stepped away from that and he went into this life of homelessness. So he wasn't interested in enriching himself. That's not the reason why he taught this topic. He taught this topic because he understood that it was generosity that led to his enlightenment. And in order for other people to get to enlightenment, they were going to need to practice generosity too. There's a time in his life where people asked him, what was it that allowed you to actually get to enlightenment by yourself without the help of any teachers or any guides as a Buddha? And he gives 3 things. And he talks about these 3 things. The very first thing that he says that led to his ability to get to enlightenment by himself was generosity. He talked about how he practiced extensive amounts of generosity in his current life, in his previous lives too. And that's how he knew that it was part of the path in order to be able to get his mind to enlightenment. So that's why he taught it as part of his teachings, not because he was trying to enrich himself. So the Buddha, prior to being the Buddha, was already rich. He was already wealthy. And then he stepped away from that. And then during his lifetime, he never even accepted gold and silver because his students were inviting him into their home and he was living right alongside of his students. So all he needed was food, clothing, shelter, and medical care. He wouldn't accept things of value, only things that he could use in order to sustain his life. Where nowadays, people do accept financial contributions and things like that because we pay electric, we pay water, we pay different things like this. So students aren't with us every moment the way they were during the lifetime of the Buddha. So teachers do accept financial contributions to be able to pay for those things, but it's not to enrich themselves. In fact, there was a situation here in Thailand several years ago where somebody wasn't doing that, where they weren't sharing the resources. They were actually teaching at a temple. They were an ordained practitioner. They were taking in all this money and they were enriching themselves. And the Thai people found out about this. This person was buying like Fendi bags and Gucci sunglasses. They were riding around in a chartered airplane. And of course, they were putting it on Facebook and Instagram and all this kind of stuff. And the Thai people found out about it. And the police went to arrest this person. And this person had run away and they escaped. They went to the USA and they put out an Interpol warrant. And they asked the U.S. police to arrest this person. And the U.S. police went to where they were and they arrested this individual. They extradited him back to Thailand and they put them through the court system. And the court found them to be guilty of fraud and embezzlement. And they sentenced him to 20 years in prison. Right? This is how serious the Thai people take this. So if you're teaching in these temples and there's donations and contributions that are being made, the way that the Buddha teaches us is to use a small portion of that to sustain our own life in order to be able to pay for food, clothing, shelter, medical care, and things like that. But then there should be opportunities coming back to the students to be able to help them get access to the teachings. There should be a comfortable place to come and learn and grow and develop. There should be classes, courses, retreats, and things like this to be able to help students to be able to grow and develop on the path to enlightenment. And the Thai people know this and they take it very seriously if there's someone in their community that's not doing that. So the Buddha gives you guidance like this to be able to make sure that when you're practicing merit, that you find individuals who are practicing the teachings closely, because that's what's going to help the teachings continue in the world. And this is one of those teachings that he's sharing. So I'll read this to you, and then I'll help you to be able to decipher it, because it's pretty straightforward, but it requires certain information that you know from other teachings. So here's what the Buddha says. This is titled An Unsurpassed Field of Merit for the World. Monks, there are 8 persons these 8 persons are worthy of gifts, worthy of hospitality, worthy of offerings, worthy of reverential salutation, an unsurpassed field of merit for the world. What 8? The stream enterer, the one practicing for the realization of the fruit of stream entry, the once returner, the one practicing for the realization of the fruit of once returning, the non-returner, the one practicing for the realization of the fruit of non-returning, the Arahant, the one practicing for the realization of the fruit of Arahantship. These 8 persons, monks, are worthy of gifts, worthy of hospitality, worthy of offerings, worthy of reverential salutation, an unsurpassed field of merit for the world. So I'm going to pause here. If you guys remember back to Monday, I taught you guys the 4 stages of enlightenment: stream enterer, once returner, non-returner, and arahant. These are the 4 stages. So what the Buddha is saying is that he's suggesting that it would be wise to make offerings to anyone who's in one of the 4 stages of enlightenment, or someone who's practicing to get into one of those 4 stages of enlightenment, because those are the individuals who have cultivated the most wisdom about the path to enlightenment, and they would be able to best help you to be able to actually get to enlightenment yourself. Because if you're just making any offering to any type of individual, this would be unwise. Because let's just say there's a teacher or an ordained practitioner who's gambling or using drugs or alcohol or doing other things like this, or maybe enriching themselves. If you're giving support for that, you're actually supporting that person. You're supporting those things. Your resources are going towards gambling and drugs and alcohol and things of this nature. And that's not where you're interested in your resources going. You're interested in your hard-earned resources going to help other people to be able to get access to the teachings. So that's why the Buddha guided you to be able to make offerings to someone who's in one of the 4 stages of enlightenment, or practicing for the realization of one of the 4 stages of enlightenment. But he also understood that when you're early in your development like this, you might not be able to tell whether someone is in one of the 4 stages of enlightenment or not. So there's other discourses where he gives you kind of like a shorthand way to be able to know this. What he teaches you to do is to observe the quality of someone's mind. That if there's a teacher teaching the teachings, you're not interested in being judgmental. You're not interested in looking down on them, but you're interested in looking at the quality of their mind. The Buddha taught you that if the person's focused, they're concentrated, they have clarity of mind, then you know that this person is practicing the teachings closely. Because he talked about this muddled mind, that if the individual has a muddled mind, it means that their mind is polluted. Muddle-mindedness means that they're lacking concentration, they're lacking focus. But if you're studying with somebody, or you encounter somebody whose mind is clear and crisp and focused and concentrated, they can not only teach you the teachings, but they can expound upon it and help you to understand the wisdom of how to practice these teachings. Then the Buddha describes that this is the type of individual that would be wise for you to support if you're interested in supporting that type of individual. Because if someone's mind is polluted, it means that they haven't actually practiced the teachings very closely yet, and it would be unwise for you to potentially support that individual. So you would like to find individuals who are actually practicing the teachings closely. The Buddha gave a great simile on this during his lifetime that I'll share with you after I go further here, but let me share the rest of this with you. So here he says, the 4 practicing the way, the 4 established in the fruit. That's what he's talking about at the beginning. This is the upright community, composed in wisdom, in virtuous behavior or moral conduct, for people intent on sacrifice, for living beings seeking merit, making merit that ripens in the acquisitions. What is given to the community bears great fruit. So what he's talking about here is practicing to give to these people who are in one of the 4 stages of enlightenment, or practicing for the realization of that. He's calling them the upright community. You might think that during the lifetime of a Buddha, he's the only one teaching. And if you were alive during the lifetime of a Buddha, you'd probably like to learn from the Buddha. But not everybody knew that he was a Buddha. It's not like that there's an outward characteristic like a turned ear or a mole or something like that everyone's like, oh, that's a Buddha, right? Not everyone knew that he was a Buddha. So there were other people who were teaching too, besides him. And they were claiming that it was their teachings that led to enlightenment. But the Buddha knew that it was his teachings that led to enlightenment. So that's why he kept teaching more and more and more and more. Right? So he referred to his community as the upright community or the straight community, because they're composed of wisdom and virtuous behavior, where the other communities, they might have been claiming that it was their teachings that led to enlightenment, but those teachings didn't lead to enlightenment. And the Buddha knew that. So rather than degrade those other people and talk bad about their community, he just talked positively about his community and said, this is the upright community. This is the straight community. They're composed of wisdom and virtuous behavior. So he was encouraging people to support his community, because he knew that it was these teachings that would reach the world and then ultimately help countless people in the world. He says, for those intent on sacrifice, for living beings seeking merit, making merit that ripens in the acquisitions. What he's talking about here about ripening in the acquisitions is that if you're making offerings to someone in one of the 4 stages of enlightenment, that means they have deep wisdom about how to get to enlightenment, and they're already well on their way, or maybe potentially enlightened themselves. So when you come in contact with them, the merit that you're making is that you're experiencing the ability to ask that person questions and seek wisdom to understand, how did they get to that first stage of enlightenment? How did they get to the second, third, or fourth stage of enlightenment? So that's the acquisitions, that your merit ripens in you being able to get to one of these 4 stages of enlightenment too. That's what he's talking about. And then he says, what is given to the community bears great fruit. Because when someone's making an offering to a teacher, they're not just making an offering to that teacher, they're making an offering to the community. So when somebody offered me this projector, they said, David, can I buy you a projector? And I said, sure, because that's for the community. It's not for me, it's for the community, right? And when you're making an offering to the community, it's bearing great fruit, because there's been thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of people that have come through this room and have benefited from actually learning from this projector. That's just one thing, let alone all the other things, right? So whenever you're giving something to a community, it's bearing great fruit, particularly a community that's practicing the teachings closely. Because what you should see is that individual isn't just putting the money in their pocket, but they're using a certain portion of the resources that are being shared with them to sustain their life. But then there's offerings coming back to the community. There's classes, courses, and retreats. And the way that I would advise people to do this is to do it at no cost. As soon as a teacher puts a cost on their courses and retreats and things like that, it's actually blocking out people who we might say actually need the teachings the most. Because there's certain people in the world that are really struggling and they lack resources to even be able to buy food and clothing and shelter and medical care for themselves. So if I put a price tag on these courses that I share, like say it was $1,000 to come learn with me for 5 days. Well, the only people that would be able to partake in that is the people that could afford it. These disadvantaged beings that are maybe struggling in the world the most, they wouldn't be able to come and learn these teachings that they need in order to be able to improve their life. So I would be blocking out people that would otherwise be able to learn these teachings. So an individual who understands the path to enlightenment and who has loving kindness and compassion for the world, they wouldn't put a price tag on their classes, because they know that all the beings in the world that need these teachings need to be able to have access to them. And as soon as you put a price tag on your classes and courses, even if it was $100, you're blocking out certain people that could never be able to afford that. So out of loving kindness and compassion, you should see that any offerings you're making to a community actually bears great fruit, that it's coming back to the students by way of free classes, courses, retreats, and resources to be able to help students learn and grow and develop. And now that teachings can be accessible to everybody and anybody. And because of this, you will see teachers that can support students far and wide. Okay, so that's what the Buddha is talking about here, is being able to make these offerings that support a community of people growing and learning and developing. But you should never feel obligated or that you're expected to make any kind of offerings to anybody. The Buddha this is the practice of generosity helps practitioners to eliminate craving, desire, attachment, which is the cause of discontentedness. The Buddha calls this eliminating the stain of selfishness, that when you're practicing generosity, it's helping you to eliminate the stain of selfishness. And oftentimes when people are starting to do this is when they start having less and less doubt about the teachings. We talked on Monday about doubt about the teachings, that an individual who comes to the path will typically have doubt of whether these teachings are truly helpful or not. And that's understandable because people don't know the teachings, so they can't really have eliminated their doubt and have confidence if they don't even know the teachings. So oftentimes as people are eliminating more and more of their doubt, that's where they might decide that they would like to support the teachings to be able to be accessed by other people. There's a misunderstanding around this merit, even here in Thailand, that people have, that sometimes when you go make an offering to a teacher or an ordained practitioner, they will gesture for you to go get this little urn of water, and then they will do some chanting while you're pouring out that urn of water. And it's a little ceremony, it's a little ritual. And what they think is that when you make an offering to a teacher, there's merit that is produced, and then this pouring out of this water is transferring the merit from you to somebody else. typically they think about dead relatives. So let's just say you have an uncle or an aunt or somebody like this who's died, and maybe they did all kinds of unwholesome things in their life. Now what they're teaching, which is a huge misunderstanding, is that you can go to the temple, you can make offerings, and then you can pour out this little water, and whatever benefit that you produced by making that offering, you're now transferring it to your dead relatives. Sounds nice, but it's just not true. It's just not possible. If you understand that merit is wholesome Kamma, and you saw the words of the Buddha, that you are the owner, the heir, you have Kamma as your relative, you have Kamma as your resort, nobody else can create Kamma for you, then you understand that this isn't true. There's no amount of pouring out of water that can transfer the benefits of your merit, because the benefits of your merit is that it's enhancing the quality of your mind, eliminating craving, desire, attachment, and you're helping other people get access to the teachings. You can't transfer that to your dead relatives. It's not possible. It's only your decisions that is producing results for you. It's not that you can transfer that to somebody else. So you might see people doing this from time to time, and you at least know what it is. In Thai, we call it Guat Nam. They might gesture for you to go get this little urn of water. Whether you do it or not is a choice for you to make, but just understand that it's not true. It's not something that the Buddha taught, but you will see people that are doing it. This is a teaching from the Buddha where he was asked during his lifetime about making offerings. He was asked by a female practitioner about how to make offerings, and he gave her this particular teaching. He talked about there's 3 factors for the donor and 3 factors for the recipient. He was saying that before you make an offering, that it would be wise for you to be joyful. And then in the act of making the offering, you would like your mind to be calm and confident. And then after the offering, you would like your mind to still be joyful. This actually protects your mind and protects your ability to be able to maintain your composure and your contentedness and your joy and your peacefulness. Because the joy before your offering should be that you've put some thought into your offering. And now you've decided like, hey, this is an offering that I'm able to make. And now when you're making the offering to the person, you would like your mind to be calm and confident while you're doing that. You're not interested in being all shaken up when you're making an offering to somebody. And then after your offering, your mind should still be joyful, meaning you shouldn't have remorse. Maybe you made an offering and you're like, oh my gosh, I gave too much. Why did I give so much? Now I can't pay my rent, or now I don't have food for myself. Why did I give so much? You could have remorse. Or you might say, why didn't I give more? Gosh, I'm so selfish. I should have gave more. I've got all this stuff. I could have given away more things, right? So you would like to not have remorse at the end of your offering. So that's why the Buddha is saying to be joyful after giving. And he's using the pronoun she here because it was a female who asked him this question. But of course, this relates to everybody. It's part of the natural laws that you would like your mind to be joyful before and after giving, and then be calm and confident in the act of giving. Then he describes the type of person or the recipient that you would like to make an offering to. And he talks about someone who's free of craving, anger, and ignorance. That would be an enlightened being. Someone who's actually free of craving, anger, and ignorance. You wouldn't see any anger, any frustration, any agitation, even the slightest ickiness in their mind. Or someone who's practicing for the realization of the removal of craving, anger, and ignorance, right? So that's where you need to look at a person's mind, that you don't enter into an environment and just haphazardly start making offerings to people. You would like to make sure that when you're making offerings to people, that it's people who are dedicated to the path and that they're truly practicing the true teachings and they're dedicated to sharing those teachings with others. The Buddha gave an example of this during his lifetime. He gave a simile. He talked about if he was a cow and he was walking on the soft earth during rainy season, and he was leaving hoof prints behind. And there was a donkey walking behind him, putting its hooves in the same hoof prints as the cow. And the donkey was thinking, I'm a cow, I'm a cow, I'm a cow, I'm a cow. Well, the fact that the donkey is putting its hoof prints in the same hoof prints as the cow, and the fact that the donkey thinks, I'm a cow, I'm a cow, I'm a cow, does that make the donkey a cow? And the answer is no. Of course not. Just because it's putting its hoof prints in the same hoof prints as the cow, and just because the donkey thinks it's a cow, doesn't make the donkey a cow. So the moral of the story that the Buddha was teaching is just because somebody's wearing an orange robe and shaving their head doesn't make them a monk. Just because somebody's wearing white clothes and shaving their head doesn't mean that they're a great teacher and that they have your best interest at heart. You need to be able to look at this individual, not in a judgmental way, but you need to have discernment where you're practicing wise decision-making about where you share your resources. Because not everybody who's wearing the clothes and shaving the hair is practicing the teachings closely. From time to time, you're going to hear news of ordained practitioners who are maybe using drugs and alcohol, or abusing children, having sexual relations with children, or having sexual relations with other people. And what I would say in those situations is they're not an ordained practitioner. They are not a monk. They are the donkey thinking that they're the cow, right? Because these individuals aren't actually truly learning and practicing the teachings closely. So you will see these things from time to time. So just because someone's wearing an orange robe and shaving their hair, or wearing white clothes and shaving their hair, doesn't make them a close practitioner of these teachings. And if you're going to use your hard-earned resources to be able to support the teachings of the Buddha, you would like to make sure that you know this person and you share resources with people who are practicing the teachings closely. You'd like to make offerings to the cow, not to the donkey, right? Not that there's anything wrong with donkeys, but you just understand the moral of the story, right? We love our donkeys too. Right? All right. So at one point, the Buddha was asked by a student to boil all of his teachings down. And this individual said, essentially, I know you have all these teachings and you have all these different teachings, but what can I be doing on a day-to-day basis to be able to move my mind to enlightenment? And the Buddha gave him 3 things. It's called the way of practice. These are 3 things that are a daily practice of what you would like to be doing day in and day out. You're still going to need to know the Eightfold Path, the 5 precepts. You're going to need to know meditation training and all these other things. You're going to need to know that wisdom. But these are the 3 things that the Buddha suggested that you would do on a daily basis. The first one is the practice of generosity, where every day you're giving and sharing your time, effort, energy, resources without any expectation of anything in return. So you're walking down the street, somebody drops their wallet on the floor. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, ma'am, this is yours. Right? That's generosity. You didn't have to pick that up. You weren't required to do that, right? Or you're walking into the store and you hold the door for someone behind you. That's generosity. You can be doing a practice of generosity each day. You would like to be frequently practicing generosity. What you'll notice is frequency is more important than the amount. So if you were going to give, say, $500 once a year to an orphanage, that's not going to be nearly as helpful and as impactful as if you give $1 a day. If you give $1 a day, your mind's having to let go more frequently. And this is training your mind to let go. So if you're noticing that your bank account balance is up here and you're really happy, and when it's down here, you're sad, you're attached to your money. You're going to need to share it with people. And that's why here in Thailand, when you go different places, like different stores and stuff like this, they usually have donation boxes everywhere. So that way, if you're going to say give 100 baht per day, you might put 10 baht or 20 baht in multiple donation boxes throughout your day. And this helps your mind to let go more frequently. So your frequency is more important than the amount. So you would like to be practicing generosity daily in all these different situations. Then the Buddha talked about improving your moral conduct, that you'd like to improve your speech, your actions, and your livelihood. As long as you're causing harm through your speech, actions, or livelihood, that harm is all coming back to you. So it's kind of like an oil pipe has bursted and is spewing oil all over the world. You're not going to go clean up the oil on the floor. That's your old unwholesome Kamma, the oil that's on the floor. That's not what would be wise, to go clean up that first while the oil pipe is still spewing oil all over the world. Instead, you got to shut down the oil pipe. Then you can clean up the oil on the floor, right? So that's why the Buddha provided you the guidance to be able to clean up your moral conduct on a daily basis, the way that you interact with people through your speech, your actions, and your livelihood. That's shutting down the oil pipe. Because as long as you're spewing unwise and harmful moral conduct into the world, it's just generating more and more unwholesome Kamma. So you would like to shut that down as soon as possible, understanding that it's gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress that's going to help you do that. And it's the Eightfold Path that's going to guide you in how to improve your moral conduct, as well as the 5 precepts. Then, on a daily basis, the Buddha taught meditation. Same thing, frequency is more important than the amount. what you'll notice is if it's a matter of one meditation for 30 minutes or 2 for 15, the 2 for 15 is actually going to be more impactful in your day-to-day life. So I would encourage you to do the 2 for 15 because your mind is having to be trained more frequently throughout your day. So the frequency is more important than the duration for your meditation as well as the generosity. So this is what's called the way of practice: generosity, moral conduct, and meditation. You would like to be practicing these 3 things on a daily basis. And if it wasn't for the generosity that what produces merit, you would actually never be able to learn the moral conduct, and you would never learn the meditation to be able to improve the condition of your mind in your life. So this is kind of what you're doing on a daily basis, continuously. It's called the way of practice. Then here's a teaching from the Buddha that was very impactful to me when I actually read it the first time, and I'll share it with you because I think it's really helpful. It's titled, "If Beings Knew the Results of Giving and Sharing." Monks, if beings knew, as I know, the results of giving and sharing, they would not eat without having given, nor would the stain of selfishness obsess them and take root in their minds. Even if it were their last bite, their last mouthful, they would not eat without having shared it, if there was someone to share it with. But because beings do not know, as I know, the results of giving and sharing, they eat without having given, and the stain of selfishness obsesses them and takes root in their minds. So what are the results of giving and sharing that the Buddha knows that other people do not know? And if they only understood the results of giving and sharing, they would not eat without having shared it, if there was someone to share it with. Well, the results that he knows of giving and sharing that other people don't know is enlightenment. If people understood the mental state of enlightenment and how peaceful and joyful the mind truly is, and that it was generosity that led them to that led him to that, they would not eat without having shared it, if there was someone to share it with. That's what he's describing here. You know, there's places here in Asia that people are actually lack resources and they don't even have very much food. So if you're like in a family of 4 or a family of 6, usually what they do here in Asia is all the food goes in the middle. And now everybody gets around the table, and now you take 2 or 3 spoonfuls out of the middle and you put it on your plate, and then you eat that 2 or 3 spoonfuls. And then everybody is doing that slowly but surely over the course of the meal. Everyone's taking 2 or 3 spoonfuls and they're eating a little bit of food. And at the end of this meal, everyone might not be full, but everybody got a little bit of food, and we all gradually got a little bit of food, right? So this is the way they tend to eat in Asia, and it's a great way to give and to share food, because the unenlightened human mind functions very much like an animal. And what you know about animals is they tend to hoard food. And that tends to be what we do in Western cultures, is we will load up our plate and this is my food. And now we don't share it with other people, right? But if you're interested in practicing a bit closer to what the Buddha taught, where you're giving and sharing, this is a wise way to eat. Whereas if you can, put the food in the middle and then share it. Or let's just say you go to 7-Eleven and you get a bag of potato chips, and this is your bag of potato chips, and you're with your friends. Pop open the bag, send it around your circle, and your friends take a potato chip or 2. And then when it comes back to you, if there's only 1 potato chip in the bag, well, just eat your 1 potato chip and then go get another bag, right? So this is a way to give and share, because food, we tend to hoard food, and you would like to be able to give it and share it with the people around you. This is going to train your mind to not function like an animal, because what you're doing on the path to enlightenment is you're becoming a better and better human being. And you would like to be able to see these animalistic instincts that you have, because you're shedding those as part of the path to enlightenment. An animal typically will not share their food, but as a human being, we can learn to share our food. And this is wise, to be able to share our food. So this is something you can think about while you're eating and you're having resources of food, is to share with other people. I'm not going to share that one with you guys, but I'll share this one with you. This one is titled, "Gifts of Teachings is Superior Than Gifts of Material Things." The Buddha says, "Monks, there are these 2 kinds of gifts, a gift of material things and a gift of the teachings. Of these 2 kinds of gifts, this is supreme, a gift of the teachings. There are these 2 kinds of sharing of material things and sharing of the teachings. Of these 2 kinds of sharing, this is supreme, sharing of the teachings. There are these two kinds of assistance: assistance with material things and assistance with the teachings. Of these two kinds of assistance, this is supreme, assistance with the teachings. So the Buddha is saying the very best gift that you could ever give to somebody is a gift of these teachings. So you could go out and buy your parents cars and houses and all kinds of other things like jewelry and stuff like that. But all of that is impermanent, right? That's not going to actually get them to peace and happiness and joy. It's these teachings that are going to help people to get to peace and happiness and joy, a permanent happiness. And that's why the Buddha is saying this is the best gift that you could ever give to anybody. So let me ask you a question. If you could press button A and your family would be bitter and harsh and hostile for the rest of their life, or you could press button B and they would be happy and peaceful and joyful for the rest of their life, which button would you press, A or B? Yeah, most people say B, right? Well, unfortunately, it's not a button. We can't press button B and make our family peaceful and joyful for the rest of their life. But what we can do is we can make these teachings available for others. And that's what merit is helping people to get access to the teachings, right? So that's what the Buddha is teaching you here. And then lastly, this is the last thing that I'll share, and then I'll just open up to questions that you guys might have. But before I share this, let me share with you guys what a Brahmin is, because you might not know what a Brahmin is. During the lifetime of the Buddha, and even now, there were people called Brahmin. We might refer to this individual as a Hindu priest, that in the society that the Buddha was in, there was this strong caste system, and you were born into a particular caste or a certain family. And it was thought that based on where you were born, your life had a certain trajectory. And if you were born into the Brahmin class, which was about 15% of society, you were considered to be holy. And because you were born into this family, you are now holy. And you are now a Hindu priest, essentially. And you're going to be doing rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer for all the people in the community. And the people in the community were taught that they couldn't improve their life. And if you were interested in improving your life, you were going to have to go visit a Brahmin, and this Brahmin was going to do rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer for you. You need to pay them a fee, and now you go home and your life was supposed to get better. Well, this bred corruption, because when people would come to the Brahmin and they would pay for a certain service, like a ritual or a ceremony, they would then go home and their life was still having difficulties and challenges. And they would come back and they would say, hey, look, I'm still having problems. It's even worse than before. Now they're like, oh, well, you need another ceremony. You need this other one over here. And this one costs more. Right? So this bred corruption. And the Buddha knew that this isn't the way that the world truly works, that in order for you to improve your life, you need to cultivate wisdom. That's what's going to improve your life. You need to make better decisions in your life, and that's what's going to improve your life, not rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer. So these Brahmin who were doing all these rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer, they were sometimes teaching a little bit of moral conduct. So they would sometimes come to the Buddha and they would actually learn from the Buddha as his students. They weren't really serious students. They weren't really deep students. They weren't necessarily going to get to enlightenment, but they were studying some of his teachings so that they could then share them with their particular people who came to see them. So the Buddha here is talking to his students. It's called mutual support between monks, Brahmins, and householders. He says, monks, Brahmins, and householders are very helpful to you. They provide you with the requisites of robes, alms food, lodgings, and medicines in time of sickness. And you monks are very helpful to Brahmins and householders as you teach them the teachings that are good in the beginning, the middle, and the end, with the correct meaning and wording, and you proclaim the spiritual life in its fulfillment in complete purity. Thus, monks, this spiritual life is lived with mutual support for the purpose of crossing the flood and making a complete end of discontentedness. So he's talking about this mutual support between the students and the teachers, where the students might decide to support the ordained practitioners or the teachers, and then the teachers are supporting the students, providing them wisdom to be able to help them grow and learn and develop. This is a system that's been in place ever since the teachings of the Buddha were here when he was alive 2,500 years ago. So his closest students, he would encourage them to leave their household life, leave their worldly careers, and just dedicate their life to sharing the teachings of the Buddha, if that's what they were interested in doing. And then by giving up their worldly life and be able to fully cultivate the wisdom of the path to enlightenment, they would then have the wisdom to help others to be able to cultivate that wisdom. If you can imagine, if the Buddha would have taught people very closely, but they had a business on the side, then when a student needs a help, they wouldn't be able to necessarily help them. They would be in conflict. It's like, okay, I need to go over here and get some money to be able to provide myself food, or I can go over here and help this student where there's no any kind of help for me to be able to get food, perhaps, in that kind of scenario. So if the Buddha did it this way, these people would be going over here to be able to attend to their business, to be able to eat and sustain their life rather than helping the students. So the Buddha set this up that his closest students would basically walk away from their worldly life and then be able to get really steeped in the wisdom to then be able to help people get to enlightenment. So this is the way it's been going on ever since the life of the Buddha. And as I mentioned, if you're choosing to support somebody, that you should see them that they're supporting you. You shouldn't have an expectation. You shouldn't have a want or a longing or a yearning that they do that. But that is what you should be able to see, that you should see any kind of support that you're offering to a teacher, that support is coming back to the community. So at this point, at the end of this talk, whenever I give this talk, I always like to pause and just be sure that you guys know that you can learn with me now and forever until the end of this life when I die, at no cost. You never have to give me anything whatsoever. If you would like to support what I'm doing here, you're more than welcome to, but just understand that I don't have any expectation that you will ever give me anything whatsoever. My interest to help you to learn and grow in these teachings has nothing to do with wanting or expecting anything from you. I'm just very appreciative that people even choose to come and learn. And when they choose to come and learn and they actually choose to also support what I'm doing, I also appreciate that too. But no matter whether you support what I'm doing or not, I'm here to help you regardless. And because there are people that support me, that I am able to help lots and lots of people in the world. There's remote islands off the coast of Africa, there were people have sent me email messages and they said, you know, David, I'm so appreciative that you share the teachings that you share, that I don't even have a library on this island where I live, but I have access to the internet and I can download your books for free. And I really appreciate that you make those for free, right? Or I've had people, again, in remote villages in Africa that live off of $50 a month, and they'll never maybe even meet me, but they've been able to learn online and be able to get access to the teachings. And I'm able to help those people because there's people that actually do support what it is that I'm doing. So if there's ever a time where you do choose to support what I'm doing, I would like to just say thank you to each one of you for your support. Thank you for your interest to help me to be able to help you, but just know that it's never expected and is never required. You're welcome to come here and learn, whether it's in Chiang Mai or anywhere else that I teach. Like I just went to India and Nepal and people were joining to learn with me. I go to the USA. I'll be there this year as well, and people can come and learn for free. No matter where I go in the world, it's always available at no cost. So no matter where I am in the world teaching, you're always welcome, and there's never an expectation for you to ever give me anything. I'm just here to give you the very best gift that I could ever give you, which is the gift of the teachings. And that's why I do what I do on a daily basis. So I'm just going to pause here and see what questions you guys might have about this topic of merit. If there's anything you guys would like to talk about or discuss, we can do that. Is there any questions you guys have? Okay. Let's wait until this afternoon. Are you going to be here this afternoon? You're not? Okay. Go ahead. Ask your question.
This morning you mentioned God and the universe. I would like to know what Buddha thought about this topic, or what are your thoughts about that?
Sure.
If there is a higher consciousness, if there is a creator, or yeah.
Yeah. If you read this first volume, chapter 18, you will see in there that I've put together a chapter that talks about this being, because you can get to enlightenment with a relationship with this being or without a relationship with this being. And you really need to be able to understand, though, if you're going to have a relationship with this being, that this being isn't punishing you and rewarding you. You don't have to worship this being. You don't have to fear this being. This being doesn't hate you or hate anybody else. There's all kinds of those things that oftentimes people are taught. They are taught that God is jealous. This isn't true. When you see as a human being that you can eliminate your jealousy, then you know that this being is not jealous. When you can see that you're able to eliminate your anger and hatred, you know that this being doesn't have any anger and hatred either. But oftentimes people teach these kinds of things. And just like you are not interested in other people being fearful and feeling guilt and shame and all these things, this being isn't interested in that either. And this being doesn't punish and reward people. This being isn't sending you to a good place or a bad place, but this is oftentimes what people are taught. So if you're really interested in this topic, I would suggest that you read that chapter first, and then you can watch the recorded classes where I've taught it. And then if you have follow-up questions, let me know, because it's a pretty deep chapter and deep topic. But just understand you can get to enlightenment with this relationship with God or without a relationship with God. And that's what some people choose. But you need to be able to at least not have hatred toward this being, because some people actually have hatred towards this being. But the Buddha never put God at the center of his teachings, because it's not God who determines whether you get to enlightenment or not. It's you that determines that. So he put you at the center of his teachings. But it is helpful to know about this being. Some people have had interaction with this being, some people haven't. But as you journey on the path and you're becoming more and more wise, more and more wholesome, there's the potential that you might have contact with this being more and more. So it is helpful to know about this being. And you'll see in there the details. The Buddha does have a creation story where he talks about how the world was created. And he talks about a being, but he doesn't ever call it God. But when you look in other parts of his teachings, not the creation story, but when you look at other parts of his teachings, he does refer to God as the all-knowing, the all-powerful, and he talks about him as the creator. But in the creation story, he doesn't specifically refer to him as God. He just says this being did this particular thing. And it's a pretty exhaustive creation story. It's in the book series over there. If you'd like to read it, you're more than welcome to. I can share with you where it's at in the book series. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is share with you guys continued support on the path to enlightenment, because obviously nobody's going to get to enlightenment in 5 days in a 5-day course. You're going to need continuous support. And, you know, sometimes people bounce around from teacher to teacher to teacher. They read this book and that book, and they bounce around from this course to that course. I would encourage you guys to find somebody who is accessible to you and study with that person deeply, because then you can actually truly understand what it is that they're teaching, and you can see the real benefits and the real results of what it is that they're teaching. And these are some of the options that you have to continue to learn with me if you would like, because I share these teachings and I'm going to be sharing them for the rest of this life. So you have books, audiobooks, videos, podcasts, and quizzes that are available to you. And these are all available at no cost. You can access them from our website, and that will help you to be able to learn. There's in-person and online classes, courses, and retreats. I teach here, but I also teach in other parts of the world too. And oftentimes when I'm teaching in other parts of the world, I also live stream that, because I live stream everything that I teach here, but I also sometimes live stream when I'm teaching in other places too. So you can access all of these from our website as well. And by the way, all of this stuff is offered openly and freely. It's never a time where you'll be asked for any money from anybody. You can learn and grow and develop on this path without any expectation of anything in return. There's ongoing programs that are both in person and online. There's the group learning program, which I just restarted this past Sunday. So you guys learning in this program, you could easily move into the group learning program, where it's basically like an hour and a half each Sunday and each Wednesday at either 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. 9 a.m. Here at the temple, Sunday and Wednesday. 9 p.m. on Sunday here at the temple, but 9 p.m. I only do it online on Wednesdays. So this is the group learning program where you're just gradually learning. You're going over a 7-month period. I'm going to walk you through this entire book On Sundays, I do a talk on the chapter, and on Wednesdays, I teach you meditation. So between Sunday and Wednesday, you can attend live or you can watch the recordings, and you can be learning this entire book. It takes about 7 months to gradually walk through this. And sometimes people take that program more than once to gradually learn it. This particular course, if you guys have been here through the entire course, this is about the first 2 months of the group learning program, because in an hour and a half each Sunday, it takes me about 2 months to teach the same things that I can teach here in 5 days. So that would be an ideal program for you guys to move into. Then there's the Words of the Buddha, the Pali Canon and English Study Group. This is actually restarting on Saturday, 2 days from now. You don't have to start either of these programs at the beginning, but it's really nice to start at the beginning if you have that option available to you. What the Pali Canon and English Study Group is the first program, the group learning program, is each Sunday and Wednesday. I walk you through the first book. The Pali Canon English Study Group is each Saturday at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m., where we study all the other books, volumes 2 through 13. And that's a 1.5 year program to gradually walk through that. And it's more of a study group versus this program where I'm kind of teaching for 15, 20, 30 minutes, opening up for questions, teaching for 15, 20, 30 minutes, opening up for questions. This one is more of a study group where somebody reads a chapter. It can take them about 2 or 3 minutes to read a chapter out loud for the whole group. Then I share some teachings on it for about 5 minutes or so. Then I open up for any and all questions that students have about that chapter. So it's more of a study group. And typically students will already have a foundation or a framework before they move into this program. So with you guys having studied in this particular course, Foundation in the Path to Enlightenment, you could easily move into this program too. So sometimes people do one and then they do the other. Sometimes people do both. It just depends on how much time you have and how much learning that you're able to do. So you can decide for yourself what you would like to do. So Saturday morning, I do this here at 9 a.m. and Saturday night, I do it from home. So you can join any of these 2 ongoing programs. Then you can get personal discussions, because it's one thing to learn in class. It's a whole nother thing to learn about specific situations that you have going on. Like when your mom or dad are maybe putting expectations on you, or your boss is putting pressure on you to get a project done, or you've had a breakup with your boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or wife, or maybe your animal, if you have a pet, maybe it died and you're having struggles with that. Any number of different things that you could be struggling with in your day-to-day life, you're welcome to come talk to me and I will help you with this. You can do this in person, where you schedule a time where if we're in the same city, we can meet together either at the temple or at a smoothie shop or at a restaurant or at a park. We can meet and we can sit down and talk and I will help you. Or if you're traveling and I'm traveling, we can actually meet online, where you can go to our website and you can schedule an appointment and then we'll meet online through Zoom. So there's that option for you to be able to learn through personal discussions, because that way you can take what you're learning in the class and apply it to a specific situation that you have in your day-to-day life. Then there's the Facebook group. If you use Facebook, or if you'd like to use Facebook, we have a Facebook group where students ask questions and then I answer them in there. Sometimes students use it in order to ask questions. Other times people just get in there and they read other people's questions and they read their answers. And this is helping them to be able to learn. It's only me that will answer your questions. Nobody else will answer your questions. So if you'd like to get into the Facebook group and be able to ask questions, you can do that. Sometimes people who are already in Facebook, it's really easy for them to join it. But sometimes people aren't in Facebook and they just open an account and they don't even post anything on their own personal profile. They just put like a picture of a rainbow or a flower or something like this, and then they use it in order to be able to come into the Facebook group and be able to learn through the Facebook group. So you could do that if you like. And as I shared, all of it's offered openly and freely. So these are the 2 programs that are going to slowly help you to be able to gradually learn. And then you can do these in-depth trainings like this on an as-needed basis. So do you guys have any questions on continued support? Yeah, so I've taught the group learning program probably like 10 times. So it's been recorded every single time. And I do it every 7 months. I restart from the beginning. In the current group learning program, I also record that. So there's a playlist in YouTube, and it's also on our podcast as well. So you can attend live, or if you can't attend live, then you can just watch the recordings. And the same thing is true about the Pali Canon English study group. I think I've taught that maybe 3 times or 2 times, something like that. And each time that I teach it, it's being recorded. So you can watch the previous ones, or you can watch the current ones. It's up to you. Okay, so I don't see any questions. It's basically lunchtime, and we're going to take a break and come back at 1:30. But before we take a break, I would like to just add something for you, is that obviously I've been sharing the best gift that I could ever share with you guys, which is the teachings of the Buddha. But now I actually have a tangible gift, a material object that I would like to offer to you guys as a gift. You guys see that I use these pictures of the Buddha, which is probably very different than what you're seeing. I use this, and I have it in the back of the room and in all the things that we have. This is what the Buddha actually looked like during his lifetime. The statues that you see where he has that crown on his head and stuff like that, he actually didn't look like that. The people who created those statues, they actually didn't live during his lifetime, and they didn't know what he looked like. So they just made an image of what they thought he looked like. But there's an artist who looked in the original teachings of the Buddha, and he's described what he looks like in his original teachings. And this artist did this artwork based on what they thought that he would look like during his lifetime, based on the description in his original teachings. So that's why I use this. And I also use this because, as you can see, he's very human. He looks like you and me. He was born in the region of the world that is called Nepal, and he taught in Northeast India. And I think it's very important to humanize a Buddha, because sometimes people put a Buddha up so high that they get to the point where they're like, well, he got to enlightenment, but I can't. Right? And now they kind of think of themselves as less of a person. Where I think it's important that you see a Buddha as just like you and just like me, that they're a human being just like you and me. They have a character, they have a personality. Yes, they've gotten to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides, and they have deep wisdom of how to do that. But they're a human person just like you and I, and they just happen to be functioning through these teachings, and they're functioning perfectly. They're not causing harm to others, and they have deep wisdom, but they're a human being like you and I. So it's important to humanize them and understand that a Buddha tells jokes, a Buddha has fun, a Buddha is enjoyable to spend time with, and I guarantee you that a Buddha probably even picks their nose and even farts from time to time too, right? So they're a human being just like you and I. So it's important to humanize a Buddha. So what I have for you is I have actually these pictures rolled up over here, and they just happen to look like a diploma when they're rolled up. So I'd like to be able to offer this to you guys as a gift, that if you would like to have these pictures, you can take them with you. And if you'd like to hang them up in your room, or you'd like to give them away as a gift to somebody else, or you'd like to take it back to your home, it can help you to humanize a Buddha, to be able to see that the Buddha is human just like you and me. But it can also maybe remind you, when you see that picture, to do some meditation, that it can remind you of that. Or maybe when you're talking on your phone to your mom and you start feeling all this anger and frustration coming up, and you look over and you see that picture, and you're like, oh, okay. Yes, Mom, how are you doing? I love you too, right? You can maybe practice the teachings a little bit more. So if you'd like this, you're welcome to come and get one either today or tomorrow. It's up to you. I have them right here for you guys. You're welcome to come and get one. And they're rolled up and they have a rubber band on them. You can take as many of them as you like. And if you'd like to keep them for yourself or give them away to other people, maybe the housekeeper in your hotel has been very kind to you. Maybe you'd like to give one to her or him. Or maybe there's someone in a restaurant that's been particularly kind to you, and maybe you'd like to give a gift to one of them. So you're welcome to take as many as you like. And this is just my gift to you to help you be able to humanize a Buddha, and also to maybe remind you that it's wise to practice the teachings of the Buddha and remind you to meditate. You might even decide to download the same file from our website and even put it on your phone, because that way, whenever your phone rings, you're like, right speech, right speech, right speech. Let me talk to this person politely, right? So that's kind of a nice thing to do as well. So I'll start teaching again this afternoon at 1:30. I'm going to teach you how to integrate the teachings into your day-to-day life now that you've learned these. I'm going to share with you guys what the field trip is all about, because tomorrow we're going to go on a field trip. I'll explain to you all the details of that. And then we're going to do an activity this afternoon as well. If you're not going to be here this afternoon and you'd like to talk about the field trip, you can come talk to me and I'll give you guys guidance on the field trip. But nonetheless, that's our plan for this afternoon. Okay, so thank you guys for your questions, and be well. And as we bring this course to a close, thank you for being here, and thank you for your interest to learn and grow and develop on the path, because it's the very best thing you could ever do for yourself, for those close to you, and all of humanity, because you're becoming a better and better person. You're also causing less and less harm to the people around you, and it's helping all of humanity become a more kind, loving, and gentler place. So thank you for your dedication to learn and grow and develop. Okay, so have a great afternoon if I don't see you. Otherwise, I'll see you at 1:30. Okay.